Other witnesses in support? If not, I'll invite witnesses in opposition forward, again recognizing that there won't be a vote on this item today. I think we'll all need a few days to review further suggested amendments, so I'd ask that you keep your comments brief.
Mr. Chairman and members, Scott Wetch on behalf of the California Coalition of Utility Employees with a number of in opposition with a number of points of concern. We have no problem with the general flavor and intent of the bill. I'll start with our most serious concern, and that's on page 26, lines 29 through lines 36. Grant the commission and future commissions far-reaching authority to do anything they deem necessary or advisable to protect the ratepayer's right to be free from forced speech. In essence, what it's doing is giving the commission the ability to tell the utilities what political purposes their ratepayer funds may or may not be spent on. Because of all of the dues that we negotiate through collective bargaining are technically ratepayer dues, as well as ratepayer fees, as well as all of the funds that we negotiate through collective bargaining pursuant to the Labor Management Cooperation Act and also the National Labor Relations Act. We fear that a future commission, or perhaps this commission, could restrict the ability of my union to collect the dues that they have in good faith negotiated, because we may want to voice our constitutional right to oppose a CCA being proposed in a local community. So for that reason, we have serious problems with the bill. Our second significant concern with the bill is that it now expands to any governmental agency the ability to get into the energy procurement business. Do we really want every mosquito abatement district in the state of California deciding that they want to become energy procurers? The Department of Water Resources failed dismally at going out and procuring power. Do we really want to open it up to every, no matter how small or unsophisticated public agency? The third major problem we have with the bill is this bill makes a titanic shift in the state's policy regarding community choice aggregation. The state's position up until, if this bill gets enacted, is one of neutrality. We have one CCA that's been created in the state of California, and the record there is that rates have gone up. So should this legislature, based on that minimal amount of history, shift the state's position from one of neutrality on community choice aggregation to one of promotion? Page 4 shifts this to promote implementation of community choice aggregation programs. Page 26, line 18, directs that the CPUC shall adopt utility code of conduct rules to promote the development of community choice aggregation programs. And several other areas in the bill, it shifts the state's position from one of neutrality to one of promotion, which I would suggest to you could be a disaster in the making because we just don't have enough history with CCA. My last significant concern is reflected somewhat in the analysis is regarding the resource adequacy questions. Page 7, lines 7 through 19 in the bill actually prohibit the Commission from authorizing an IOU to obtain generation resources needed to keep the lights on unless the Commission does the following: has a hearing, finds that a load-serving entity has failed to meet resource adequacy needs, that would be the CCA, that the failure has caused a serious, this is a quote, a serious threat to reliability, and that the ISO or someone else has not remedied that. So in translation, what does that mean? Forget planning for the future until we are on the brink of the lights going out and it's too late to do anything but buy candles. The CPUC cannot act. The CPUC cannot act to step in until all of those items have been made. We tried eliminating planning with deregulation, and we had rolling blackouts. It would be foolish to tie the hands of the CUP again. And then on page 17, lines 26 through 27, we strongly object to the limiting of the exit fees to 36 months. This is completely inconsistent with how we deal with every other instance, including with with ESPs and in the world of direct access. So even if the IOU has spent ratepayer money to buy new generation to keep the lights on with a typical 20-year contract, CCA customers only have to pay for the generation for 36 months. Then all the rest of the ratepayers get to eat the other 17 years worth of cost. That's just patently unfair to the rest of ratepayers. It creates a situation that undermines the viability of the investor-owned utilities. And so for those 5 reasons, we are strongly opposed to the bill.
Sir.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I missed the call for the support.
That's okay. We'll take some brief testimony here.
Thank you so much. I'm with my name is Barbara George. I'm with Women's Energy Matters, and I prepared a package which includes the energy efficiency misuse of funds to fight community choice, and also a chart showing the excess power that California has with or without nuclear power through 2020. These are CPUC figures, and I strongly support SB 790. We've been active in the Marin Energy Authority efforts to accomplish CCAs, and I have watched the energy efficiency misuse of funds. I actually have a video that I would also like to give you that shows PG&E's offering energy efficiency funds to fight CCAs.
Okay, we'll have sergeants take that and share it with the committee.
Mr. Chair, members, Cindy Howell with San Diego Gas and Electric. We have an opposed unless amended position on the bill. San Diego Gas and Electric did not engage in Prop 16, but does have concerns about the way this bill is drafted. We would be happy to work with the author and the legislature to create new rules for community choice aggregation to the extent that is the desire of policymakers. But with regard to flaws in SB 790, I will associate my comments to those of Mr. Wetch, who did a great job of outlining SDG&E's concerns with the bill. We also have concerns related to customer privacy, and it was unclear to me whether those were addressed with the author's amendments accepted at the beginning of the author's presentation, so we'll wait for further discussion about amendments to the bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition? If not, Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought it might be orderly and time efficient going from your analysis as our scorecard, starting with resource adequacy. Our handout, starting on page 2, will match each of these items and just show you where we are. Well, some of them are fine to take, and many of them address Mr. Wetch's concerns.
Well, what I'm thinking is, you mentioned earlier you're not expecting a vote today. So members, be ready for a long day on Tuesday.
I thought we could get our conversation today so I don't have to trouble you next week.
No, and I'm happy to take as much time as possible, as necessary on Tuesday to have a thoughtful, informed conversation. What I think would be helpful to not just myself, but all members of the committee to give our staff a chance to review your new proposed amending language.
I will follow
cross-reference it with the analysis that's already been prepared. Possibly revise or update the analysis so we can have a more focused conversation on Tuesday.
That's fine.
Okay.
As you like.
Okay.
And I know you're short of time today.
Thank you, Mr. Leno. Senator Leno, you have one other bill.
Yes, I do.
Item number 5.
Good. And just to conclude on 790, many of the issues that were raised in the oppositional testimony we have addressed in the amendments we'll go over next Tuesday. So SB 705 relates to gas pipeline safety. Chair Padilla, you and I chaired an informational hearing after the tragic blast of September 9th, both the Public Safety and Energy Committees here in this room, and many of the issues that were raised in that hearing we have tried to address in this bill, SB 705. And it embodies a broad vision for improving safety in the natural gas industry, and the bill establishes an absolute first priority for safety in the industry, requires the development by utilities of a comprehensive safety plan and creation of a safety culture, and provides assurances to ratepayers that their rates will pay for safe service, not past mistakes. So that's the broad overview. Out of respect for time, I'll move directly to my supporters here.
And before we hear from them, there are two suggested amendments in the analysis. Do you accept either or both?
We have a suggested alternative, right?
Well, one of the suggested amendments are just technical in nature.
Yes, of course, there's no problem with the technical, and we'd like to discuss the first one.
Okay. Let's hear from your witnesses.
Lenny Goldberg on behalf of TURN. We're very involved and concerned about the pipeline safety issue, and think this bill, in coalition with Labor, takes a very important step forward. I want to speak to one section of the bill, Section 5 of the bill, which is, I think it's been called rate making to an extent, but what it really says, and it seems to me very clearly says, that where an investor-owned utility has been negligent, has not adequately handled safety issues, that cost recovery should not necessarily, this is still left with discretion of the PUC, but that cost recovery, the PUC should look at this in their determinations of cost recovery. For most, the safety provisions of this bill, the cost recovery is from ratepayers. But where the IOU has been negligent and has not adequately dealt with safety, that should not, the additional requirements should not necessarily be paid for by ratepayers. So we think it's very important to send that message to the PUC that when there's a determination that they have inadequately handled the safety issue, that not be paid for by our pockets. And we think it's a very good bill, and we strongly support that section in particular.
Next witness.
Good afternoon, Senator. My name is Carl Wood. As you may know, I'm a former California Public Utilities Commissioner, but maybe even more pertinent to this bill and the issues we're considering. I'm a former longtime industrial worker, industrial electrician, and I've worked in a number of quite dangerous industries: the steel industry, the chemical industry, the nuclear electrical generating industry. And as a union representative, I represent here in California some 4,000 natural gas workers, as well as thousands of other natural gas workers around the country. Gas safety is important to the people of California and a public priority in the wake of the San Bruno explosions, as well as incidents that have occurred in other parts of the country, more recently in Allentown, Pennsylvania, underscore that importance. Workers in the industry are committed to gas safety. It's a daily concern, almost bordering on an obsession with workers, not only, but importantly, for their own personal safety, but also the safety of the public as well. Workers have not only a sense of urgency, but a very intimate knowledge of conditions that exist and things that may need to be changed before they actually cause damage. The safety culture and the safety plan that embodies this concern is described in the bill, and it reflects our commitment as workers to the public of which we are a part. The past 2 decades or more of deregulation, which should not only be thought of as AB 1890 in the electrical industry, but rather a conglomeration of a group of processes which has included the natural gas industry since the 1980s, has led to a philosophy and practice of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We in the trade sometimes refer to this approach as what's formally called condition-based maintenance, as opposed to preventative maintenance. Condition-based maintenance is abbreviated CBM, and we call it crash and burn maintenance, also CBM. That's maybe a kind of a crude joke given the fact that we have seen some very serious accidents that have resulted in fatalities. But it's a reality, and it's an approach that perhaps is appropriate in the steel industry, where the failure of pieces of equipment is an economic decision that doesn't usually result in any kind of consequences for human life or limb. But in industries like the natural gas industry or the nuclear industry where I've worked, it's simply unacceptable, and we have to change that approach. We have to fix it before it breaks, not after it breaks. We need a different approach, one that proactively identifies hazards and eliminates them, holds all participants in the process accountable for preventing accidents and damage, and equips them to prevent accidents and damage with adequate revenues and adequate oversight. Senator Leno's bill provides accountability both for improved safety performance and for the rate revenues that will fund safety performance. And I and my union, the Utility Workers Union of America, strongly support SB 705. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman and members, Barry Broad, very quickly, because I know we all would like to get out of here today. I represent the engineers and scientists of California. They do the planning and engineering, including for gas, for PG&E. And also the Teamsters are in support of the bill. We have an aging gas infrastructure. We have a lot of aging infrastructure in California. I guess another way of putting it is maybe we sort of regulate by the sort of there but the grace of God approach, and sometimes God is there and sometimes God isn't, but if it goes boom, it's unacceptable. And we can't live in a world with that kind of risk in the natural gas industry. Safety has to be the number one priority for the gas infrastructure because the risks are so extreme. So we urge an aye vote. This is a reasonable and sensible bill, and it deserves to become law. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Scott Wetsch on behalf of the California Coalition of Utility Employees. My members as well do the construction, maintenance, and inspection of many of these gas systems throughout the state, and we'd urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support?
Thank you, Scott. Am I on? Support of amendment. Cindy Howe for Southern California Gas Company and San Diego Gas and Electric. We have adopted a support, if amended, position on the bill. And at the same time have serious concerns with the way it's drafted right now. SoCalGas is the largest natural gas distribution company in the United States. We maintain over 4,000 miles of transmission pipelines. And we are supportive of a program that enhances safety related to our transmission pipelines and improves public confidence in that safety. We understand that the introduction of this bill is in some part related to San Bruno, and recognizing that, it was a tragic situation, and we're not, we have nothing to say with regard to that. The investigations are going on, and I will note that the CPUC, an independent Blue Ribbon Commission, as well as the National Transportation Safety Board all have ongoing investigations into that accident, and we anticipate later this year, the first part of next year, they will be coming out with recommendations, both with related to determinations of cause, but also related to regulatory and legislative changes that will enhance safety. I can say that safety at the gas company and SDG&E is our top priority, not just the safety of the communities we serve, but also all of our customers and our employees. I would also like to let you know that we have had record employee safety results at the gas company and San Diego Gas and Electric, and I think that is due in large part to participation. Due to participation by our employee unions in many of our, I think all of our company safety committees, that we have active engagement, and I understand that we also have these committees participate in a safety congress where we take 400 to 600 of our employees to discuss safety, and it's making an improvement. It's making a difference. They're focused on it. It is part of our culture. The gas company has an active pipeline integrity management program, and through this program, we address the overall condition of our facilities, including ensuring strict compliance with all pipeline safety regulations. I will also let you know that the feds have recently adopted a new program called Distribution Integrity Management Program. That's related to all of the distribution lines, and that goes into effect in August. My biggest concern with SB 705 is really related to Section 5, which is about cost recovery. It's legislative rate making in that PUC already has the authority to deny cost recovery for costs that it deems aren't reasonable. So what this bill is codifying, and I do disagree with some of the comments of the supporters, it does codify prohibitions, strict prohibitions against the commission granting cost recovery for the utility when it is providing service to its customers. And Section 5 goes on and has several provisions related to matters that will, in effect, make it more difficult for the utility to maintain its pipelines. One example is a requirement that we do an alternatives determination before making safety improvements to the pipeline infrastructure, which appears to our folks as additional hurdles in that area. The legislation has contrary motivations in it, and that also is a huge concern to the gas company and San Diego Gas and Electric. On the one hand, focusing more on which we should, which is why we're supportive of creating a transmission pipeline management system, but focusing more on safety, enhancing safety, all good. On the other hand, denying cost recovery when we attempt to do so. I would point out one thing, and I know you want me to wrap up, but shortly after the San Bruno explosion in September, there was an article in the San Diego Union Tribune where Michael Shames, who is the director of UCAN, the consumer group down in San Diego, says that the biggest complaint they get is that we overreact to issues related to maintenance, and that they, in fact, believe we gold-plate our system, meaning we spend too much money on safety-related maintenance of the system. So it's really hard for us to look at this legislation and have confidence that we're not being asked, on the one hand, to invest more in safety, and on the other hand, only to be set up to have our cost recovery for those investments denied, or at a minimum have to litigate on both sides. So we have provided amendments to the author which focus the effort on what we really should be focused on after September, which is improvements to the transmission pipeline infrastructure and requiring a program that does look at those things specifically. And I just recommend that we not lose our focus there. Thank you so much.
Next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, Mitch Seaman with the California Labor Federation, in strong support.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Witnesses in opposition or middle ground?
I was hoping that category would get called. Kent Kaus with Pacific Gas and Electric Company. We do not have a formal position on the bill. We've had very general discussions with the author staff. Didn't get any details into those discussions, but we share the concerns expressed in the analysis and by Semper relative to Section 5 of the bill, and want to have further discussions on those provisions. Thank you.
Before turning to questions, comments from committee, I wanted to share with the members sort of how I view the bill. You know, on the one hand, this is one of a number of bills introduced this session that more than arguably is in response to the San Bruno incident from last year. So how could you possibly be against a bill that is all about safety? How could you possibly be against a bill that isn't trying to protect Californians? And while that's certainly the theme of it on the surface, I'm actually supportive of significant chunks of the bill. The way I read it is it's calling for each utility to have, or each gas pipeline operator to have, a safety plan. That's a good thing. Bill goes further in beginning to prescribe what that plan should look like. And that's debatable, whether we go far enough or too far in prescribing what that safety plan ought to be. As I mentioned earlier in the hearing on another bill, wanting to respect the line between this committee and the legislature doing the job of the PUC versus this committee and the legislature making sure that the PUC is doing its job. The problem with the bill I have the most problems with is that Section 5 of the bill that was referenced by some of the witnesses, where I don't know where the term legislative rate making came from. I might be guilty of being one of the first people to use that term, but the way I read the bill is pretty clear on page 7. The Commission shall not allow the recovery directly or indirectly of expenses from ratepayers that are incurred by the Gas Corporation for any of the following. And it gets into data gathering, inspection work, maintenance work, etc. That may not be a specific rate increase amount that's being requested that the legislature is going to say, from here forward, all of these rate increases can be approved or not approved, but it's more than just a nose under the tent, the way I read it. The PUC has authority, and we ought to make sure that they're doing their job. So if it's not agreeable to the author to take that part of the bill out and leaving in the call for the safety plan, short of that, I would not be able to be supportive with the bill today. Senator Ray.
You went where I was going. I think it's also important, members of the committee, that we understand that in the natural gas business, the majority of the regulation is done by the federal government, so that a natural gas company is actually regulated by the federal government in terms of safety and how it operates and determination of what happens, so that in the case of San Bruno, the person who will ultimately make the pronouncement about what occurred is the NTSB, because the regulations about the safety of a gas pipeline are federally done. So we can impose additional regulations, kind of, sort of, maybe, but it's not clear, because if what we propose is in variance with what the federal government proposes, we lose because they've already occupied full jurisdiction over how gas pipelines run. I think I would agree with the chair. I can't support it with that item 5N because it almost creates a perverse incentive for the utility not to do as much. They're following the federal government by federal law. They have to do that. To even have the license to be a gas company, you actually need a federal certificate and not a state certificate. They fully regulate this area. Absent having a conclusion by the NTSB as to what happened, I think that some of this becomes premature. But if we're talking about having a safety protocol, I could support a safety protocol, but the item 5 moves us far too far into rate making and statute, which gives me a bit of pause.
Other members, questions, comments? Senator Berryhill.
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of echo maybe the chairman's comments also, and really applaud the senator for your bill. Everybody wants to be safe, and but it seems to me, and the concerns that I have in this bill, is that we're kind of micromanaging the PUC, and it seems to me that we've already got legislation that is that we have formal proceedings going on right now, taking a look at that problem. Now, I guess my question, maybe is even to the chairman, were you referring to the amendments that San Diego Edison was alluding to a minute ago?
Not specifically. I mean, the committee analysis alone speaks to a suggestion to delete Section 5 of the bill. I believe the Sempra, SoCalGas, San Diego Gas amendments go more than just to address the Section 5 concern, but has substantive language suggestions or changes to other sections of the bill as well. So I'm not even there yet.
Are you familiar with those amendments?
Some of them, as the chair said, are rather far-reaching. In fact, it would exempt about 99% of their system from the state safety program, so it goes pretty far. But Happy to very quickly address Section 5 and the offer that you're making. If you can be so agreeable, I would like to be able to work with the committee because I think some of the points made in the analysis are very well taken and that there is a better way to write Section 5 than we have initially done it. I would be committing to the basic standard that utilities recover the reasonable costs of the safety plan going forward while at the same time protecting ratepayers from any kind of abuse. So if we can reach some agreement between now and appropriations, we would do that, and if not, it would not leave appropriations without deleting Section 5 if you just requested, just to give us an opportunity to see if we can reach some common ground.
Okay, I know Senator Corbett has some comments. While I call on her, I'll ask you to consider just accepting the author's amendment of deleting Section 5. Happy to work with you on what a substitute or alternative might look like. But for purposes of this committee considering an action, that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
Senator Corbett.
So my question is just knowing that Senator Pavley is about to lose votes she needs on her bill that's coming up next, if we could just sort of figure out where we're going in this. Senator.
I take the chair's proposal.
Okay, very good.
And ask for an aye vote.
I'll make a motion on the measure.
Okay, so it's the bill as amended, reflected in the analysis, and we'll continue to work with the author to achieve his goals.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other further question or comment? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Padilla?
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Fuller? Berryhill? Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. De Leon? Aye. De Leon, aye. DeSaulnier? Pavley? Aye. Pavley, aye. Rubio? Semidian? Strickland? Wright? Wright, aye. Needs one more vote.
Okay, that needs one more vote. We have a couple members out of the room.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and committee members for your time, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for your patience. Senator Pavley, let's set a record here.
I can do that because the analysis is so wonderful. Thank you very much. This bill simply reallocates the money that was set aside for a PACE program, which was an energy efficiency program that was approved by a 2/3 vote a few years ago, and it moves it into an existing program. It's a revolving loan program. So the $50 million that was used for PACE will be shifted over here. It's an excellent program, no defaults in loans. It's money that goes to local governments to get energy efficiency improvements and also goes to schools and hospitals. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Senator Corbett.
Mr. Chair, I just would like to say I think we're all familiar with this program and the work Senator Pavley has been doing on it, and I know of no opposition on the matter, so I would be glad to make a motion as soon as you need it.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. We have witnesses that I don't think want to change our minds about this. So.
Good afternoon, Chair Ross, on behalf of on behalf of the League of California Cities. We are strong supporters and always have been of funding.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, members, Randy Chin with Southern California Edison. We're happy to support the bill.
Thank you.
Cindy Hillary, Regional Council of Rural Counties, in support of the bill.
Thank you.
Rachel O'Brien, on behalf of the U.S. Green Building Council, California Advocacy Committee, in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, questions, comments from committee? Seeing none, we have a motion. Let's call the roll.
Padilla?
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Fuller? Berryhill? Berryhill, aye. Corbett? Corbett, aye. De Leon? De Leon, aye. DeSaulnier? Pavley?
Aye.
Pavley, aye. Rubio? Semidian? Strickland? Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye.
Okay, that's sufficient votes, but we'll keep it on the list as we lift calls. Let's give it 60 seconds, and then we'll take it from the top. Members of the committee, if you're within earshot, we're going to be lifting calls in 60 seconds.
We have a Pavley.
foot. It's killing me.
We have a 20 on foot.
Freshman 10.
Fuller.
Fuller.
Vice Chair. But if she's...
No, it's her
You have,
staff. Must be. Tyler, is she here? Okay, she's here.
Okay.
It's
Welcome,
way left
Vice
there.
Chair. We'll give you a second to get settled if you need guidance here from staff. But otherwise, we're ready to lift the calls on all the bills, once and once only. Let's start with item number 1.
SB 370, current vote 8-1, chair voting aye. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. Semidian? Aye. Semidian, aye. It's out.
That bill is out. Next item, please.
SB 489, Wolk, current vote 3-2, chair voting aye. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. De Leon? Aye. De Leon, aye. DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Rubio? Aye. Rubio, aye. Semidian? Semidian, aye. It's out.
That bill is out. Next item, please.
SB 679, Pavley, chair voting aye. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Rubio? Aye. Rubio, aye. Semidian? Aye. Semidian, aye. Strickland? It's out.
That bill is out. Next item, please.
SB 682, Calderon, chair voting aye. Vice chair voting aye. Berryhill? Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Semidian? Semidian, aye.
That bill is out. Next item, please.
SB 705, Leno, chair voting aye. Fuller?
With
Full-
amendments, right?
Yes. Fuller, aye. Berryhill? DeSaulnier? DeSaulnier, aye. Rubio? Rubio, aye. Semidian? Semidian, aye. Strickland? That bill is out.
That bill is out, and members, both items 6 and 7 were briefly discussed and are being held over for Tuesday's hearing. So that dispenses with the items for today. We do have a lengthy agenda for Tuesday, so Senator Rubio may want to bring both his lunch and his dinner. Be prepared for a long day on Tuesday, as it'll be our last hearing before the deadline. Thank you very much. This hearing is adjourned.